The space between you and others isn't emptiness. It's where your true power is forming. This video will reveal why your awakening isolation isn't just necessary, but sacred, and how this powerful threshold is preparing you for connections more authentic than you've ever known. Their words hit your ears but miss your heart. Their worries seem so small now. They see the world through a tiny keyhole, but you see so much more. And then you feel it, a cold wind in the room that only you can feel. What if the loneliest part of growing isn't being alone, but being with people who can't see you anymore? You smile, you nod, you pretend to connect. But inside, something is breaking open. A gap forms between who you were and who you're becoming, between their world and your new one. No one told you that waking up would feel this way. They talked about the light, the clarity, the purpose. But they never mentioned how alone you'd feel when you start questioning everything that everyone around you still believes. When you stop numbing yourself, when you start seeing all the fake games, empty goals, and shared lies that once felt normal to you. Your growth isn't pushing people away. It's showing you the distance that was always there. What happens when you can't join in talks that used to excite you? When family get-togethers feel like watching strange tribes? When friends you've known for years suddenly feel fake? This isn't about being better than them. God, you wish it was that simple. This is about the hard truth that growing creates distance. That each step toward your real self can feel like a step away from people who knew your old self. Take a breath. Feel that space between worlds. The emptiness that scares you and the fullness that's growing. The powerful truth is that waking up breaks connections before it builds new ones. It strips you naked before giving you new clothes. It empties your house of guests before bringing in the ones who truly belong. And in that empty house, in that naked feeling, in that space between old friends and new ones, there is a silence so loud it could drive you crazy. Or it could finally let you hear your own voice. You didn't outgrow them. You outgrew the mask you wore with them. You remember how it started, right? Maybe it was a book that changed everything inside you, or meditation that showed you what was behind your thoughts. Maybe it was pain that broke you open, or words you couldn't unhear. However it began, you now stand in the extraordinary in between. Too awake to go back, too alive to feel sure about going forward. Your old friends invite you out, and you go, hungry for connection, for the comfort of what's familiar. But a few drinks in, as they gossip about coworkers or obsess over things to buy, you feel yourself floating above the table, watching the show, unable to join in. You've forgotten your lines in a play that once came so easily. "What's wrong with you lately?" they ask. "You're so different." And they don't mean it as a good thing. Their problem with your growth isn't about you. It's about the mirror you've become. At home, your partner feels it too. The way you've started questioning things they take for granted. The way you sit quietly when before you would have filled the silence. The books by your bed that speak a language they don't get. They feel you pulling away, even though you're right beside them. The questions come at 2 a.m. when you wonder if you've made a huge mistake. Would it be easier to forget what you've learned? To plug back in? To laugh at what you're supposed to laugh at? To want what you're supposed to want? To numb what you're supposed to numb? Who gets upset when you grow? Who tries to pull you back down to where they feel comfortable? Drop a fire emoji in the comments if you felt people trying to stop your growth. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. You're evolving. This is the truth no spiritual teacher warns you about. That sometimes waking up feels less like finding light and more like being called to adventure. That growth can make you a stranger in your old life because you're meant for a new one. Take a moment. Feel the power of that truth. Let it sink into your body. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming your own person, separate from what everyone else thinks and believes. But Jung knew something many spiritual teachers today leave out. This journey makes you feel very alone because it's the path to your greatest strength. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." What he didn't add was the thrill of that privilege. The warrior's path of the hero on his journey to claim his power. Every hero has to leave home. Every birth means leaving the womb. Think about the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell found in stories all around the world. The hero doesn't transform while staying safe in the village. No, they must leave, crossing into unknown wild places where the old rules don't work anymore. This separation isn't just a small part of the journey. It's the catalyst for greatness. The hero has to leave the familiar to find deeper truths that will transform them. Odysseus, wandering far from home. Buddha, leaving his palace. Moses on the mountain. Jesus in the desert. In old tribal societies, coming-of-age rituals physically removed the young person from the community. The teen was taken into the wild, often blindfolded, confused, tested with hard trials. This physical separation showed a deeper truth. You can't become your powerful new self while surrounded by people who keep you in your old self. Your isolation isn't a failure. It's a cocoon where you transform. Think of a snake shedding its skin. During this vulnerable time, snakes don't crawl through rough ground or show themselves to predators. They hide, they separate until the process is done. The snake comes out renewed, but only after a time of being alone and vulnerable. This is the transformation phase of your awakening. Look at the spaces between your fingers right now. That empty space is where you live now, between who you were and who you're becoming. Between the community that shaped you and the one that will welcome your new self. Between languages, between worlds. You're not lost, you're between maps. This in-between space has a name in anthropology, liminality, from the Latin word for threshold. It's the middle stage of a rite of passage, when the person has left one world but hasn't yet joined the next. What no one tells you about this in-between time is how potent it is, how it can stretch from days into months into years, how it can become the most creative, alive space you've ever inhabited. The isolation of awakening isn't a flaw in the system. It's the forge. It's the cocoon that makes transformation possible. The question isn't how to escape this isolation, but how to harness its power. Stop. Breathe. Feel the electric potential in this space between worlds. There's a pattern when we look closely at this isolation. A rhythm to the dance between connection and solitude. A purpose to the intensity. Let's call it what it is. Sacred exile. You cannot transform in comfortable places. When your consciousness begins to expand beyond the boundaries of your old self, you become energetically mismatched with places and relationships that matched your old frequency. This isn't spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. It's the physics of human evolution. Think about what happens physically during transformation. A snake cannot expand while keeping its old skin. A butterfly cannot stay connected to caterpillar friends. A child growing into a teen experiences the stretch and growth as muscles lengthen and strengths develop. Transformation, by definition, breaks containers. You didn't lose your people. You outgrew the boxes that once held you both. The maintainer is the first guide you'll meet on this journey. This is the force, both inside and outside, that shows you what you're moving beyond. Sometimes the maintainer looks like a friend who says, "You're thinking too much." Sometimes it's a parent who says, "This isn't how we raised you." Sometimes it's your own voice at 3 a.m. whispering, "Just go back to sleep." The maintainer isn't your enemy. It's your contrast. Systems naturally resist change. Communities unconsciously work to keep their members consistent and predictable. Your brain itself is designed to save energy by keeping established thought patterns. You cannot transform in comfortable places. Let that sink in. You cannot transform in comfortable places. The isolation you feel is the necessary space where new brain pathways form, where new viewpoints take shape, where your authentic voice, long drowned out by the noise of group thinking, can finally be heard clearly. Sacred exile isn't punishment, it's promotion. Here's where most people misinterpret their journey. They see this isolation as failure. They see the growing distance between themselves and others as proof they're doing something wrong, that they're becoming too weird or intense or different. They feel the discomfort of social friction and retreat back to their former, smaller selves. What if, instead, you recognize this isolation as confirmation, as proof that real transformation is happening? Sacred exile isn't punishment, it's promotion. I'll say it again. Sacred exile isn't punishment, it's promotion. Pause. Let that truth land in your body. Feel what changes when you reframe your isolation not as rejection, but as advancement. Think of it as spiritual incubation. When you're upgrading your internal operating system, you need protection from environments that could corrupt the download. The isolation creates a sacred zone where your new understanding can strengthen before being tested against the old world. Your alone time isn't emptiness. It's a womb growing something new. There's a reason monastery walls are high. There's a reason vision quests happen in the wilderness. There's a reason artists go to cabins alone to create their masterworks. This doesn't mean being disconnected forever is the goal. Far from it. Human beings need connection like we need air. But just as an athlete must temporarily restrict their breathing to expand lung capacity, you must temporarily feel the intensity of social restriction to expand your capacity for deeper connection later. The shallow connections fall away, so the meaningful ones can emerge. The most evolved mind can meet people exactly where they are. As your awareness expands, you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. You can understand others more clearly than they can understand you. You can see their perspective, recognize their conditioning, see the unconscious patterns driving their behavior, while they experience the new language you're speaking. This creates a powerful asymmetry. You can visit their world, but they cannot yet visit yours. It's like learning to see in infrared. You perceive parts of reality invisible to others. You can describe what you see, but those without infrared vision have no reference point for your words. Take a moment. Feel the incredible gift of being able to see what others cannot. The responsibility, the potential, the power. This asymmetry presents you with three possible paths: dimming your light to maintain surface connections, developing separation to protect your growth, using your new vision to bridge worlds and create deeper connections. The third path is where your greatest power lies. Your awakening isn't just for you. Your isolation has purpose. This is your invitation to a fourth path, holding the tension of opposites with courage, continuing to grow while extending compassion to those who cannot yet understand your journey. Remember this: the most evolved mind can meet people exactly where they are. The isolation of awakening is not your final destination. It's the training ground where you develop the spiritual muscles needed for a more profound form of connection. One based not on shared conditioning, but on shared humanity. Your growth challenges others not because you're wrong, but because you're proof that more is possible. Let's be thrillingly honest about what's really happening here. Part of you is in awe of who you're becoming. Part of you is excited by who you're becoming. Because the person you're becoming will make choices the old you would never dare make. Will speak truths the old you would never dare speak. Will build a life the old you would never dare imagine. The isolation you feel isn't just about others not understanding you. It's about you stepping into an understanding of yourself that's more powerful than you've ever known. Breathe into that potential. It's the expanding energy of your evolving self. Who are you beyond the people pleaser your family knows? Who are you beyond the achiever your coworkers respect? Who are you beyond the role you've played in every relationship? In the silence of your sacred exile, these questions echo in your head, and they exhilarate you. You didn't lose your place in the world. You outgrew the world you were placed in. You cannot transform in comfortable places, and nothing is more electric than identity expansion. The most powerful isolation isn't the distance between you and others. It's the distance between who you were and who you're becoming. The old self making space for the new self being born. What mask are you still wearing even when alone? What parts of your awakening are you still hiding from yourself? This is why isolation is necessary. Because authentic transformation requires a level of honesty that's nearly impossible when you're with people who only know your old self. Their expectations form invisible walls that you're now growing beyond. You're not separate. Your awakening doesn't make you better, just more aligned with your purpose. Sacred exile isn't punishment, it's promotion. It's the universe saying you're ready for the advanced class. It's existence separating you from the herd because you're meant for a different path. Here's the empowering truth. You're not special in separation. Your awakening doesn't make you better. It makes you more authentically you. Your growth isn't an achievement. It's an alignment with your deepest purpose. The isolation isn't a reward for superiority. It's preparation for profound connection. Stop. Breathe. Feel the freedom in releasing the need to perform your growth for others. Who are you becoming in this sacred solitude? What parts of this journey are bringing you most alive? What would your awakening look like if you fully embraced it as your birthright? Your breaking open isn't falling apart. It's expanding. The most liberating truth is that every real awakening breaks your heart open. It shatters not just your connections to others, but your attachments to who you thought you were. It humbles before it empowers. It empties before it fills. And in that emptiness, in that isolation, you finally face the ultimate spiritual invitation. Are you willing to be transformed into your most authentic self, even if it reshapes everything you thought you knew? Even if you must walk the warrior's path for a time? You didn't break. You broke open. The isolation of awakening is not the end of connection. It's the beginning of true communion. As you continue to inhabit this in-between space with courage rather than resistance, something alchemical happens. The very isolation that felt like punishment becomes a forge where your authentic self is hammered into form. The silence that felt like absence becomes pregnant with presence. The exile wasn't your punishment, it was your initiation. Remember the snake shedding its skin? The time of vulnerability passes. The butterfly struggling in the cocoon. The wings eventually dry and strengthen. The hero in the wilderness. They eventually return to the village, bringing gifts. Your sacred exile has a purpose beyond personal growth. You are being prepared to bridge worlds, to translate higher awareness into grounded action, to create connections based not on shared illusions, but on shared truth. Take a breath. Feel the purpose emerging from what once felt like disconnection. And here's the secret that makes the isolation powerful. You're not actually alone. You're not alone in your awakening. You're just in separate cocoons. Across the world, others are awakening too, feeling the same intensity, the same temporary isolation, the same expansion. They too sit in living rooms feeling like pioneers in their former lives. They too lie awake feeling the energy of transformation. They too are learning to speak a language their loved ones don't yet understand. You can't see them yet because you're still in separate cocoons. But they're there, transforming alongside you. And when you emerge, when they emerge, you'll recognize each other instantly. Not by your spiritual words or meditation techniques or the books on your shelves, but by the depth in your eyes, by how you truly listen, by the authenticity of your presence. I honor the exile that shaped me. Type these words in the comments if you're ready to embrace rather than escape the isolation of your awakening. I honor the exile that shaped me. Your awakening isn't complete, it's just beginning. In the next video, we'll explore what happens after the isolation, how to build a new community that supports rather than limits your growth, how to translate your awakening into language others can understand, how to bridge worlds without compromising your truth. Because the journey doesn't end with awakening or isolation. Those are just the first two chambers of a much larger temple. If you're navigating the wilderness of transformation right now, you're not alone on that journey. This channel is dedicated to mapping the territory of consciousness evolution with honest truth and practical wisdom. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to join a community of fellow travelers who understand that real growth isn't about spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. It's about the courage to face what's real, both inside and around you. Your isolation wasn't a detour. It was the path. Your awakening isn't just for you. Your isolation isn't meaningless suffering. You're being forged for a purpose that will reveal itself in time. Subscribe to continue the journey together. Perhaps the most powerful truth is this: the isolation was never a wrong turn on your path. It was the path itself. The spaces between your connections weren't empty failures. They were the fertile void where your authentic self took root. Your loneliness wasn't missing others. It was finding yourself. What if the times you felt most intensely alone were actually times of profound communion with your highest self? What if the exile wasn't rejection, but invitation? There is a loneliness that empties, and a loneliness that fills. One is the absence of others. The other is the presence of your true self. Tonight, when the world grows quiet and that familiar energy of isolation returns, don't rush to fill it with noise, with distraction, with compromise. Sit with it, honor it, thank it, whisper to the darkness, I see your purpose now. I understand what you're building in me. The cocoon feels like a prison only to the caterpillar who can't imagine wings.